All right, we here. Osa, what's
Going on?
up?
Hey, what's going on, y'all? Hey, thanks for having me. Excited to be here. But it's Sunday. I don't know what's happening. I'm chilling. I'm cooling out. My youngest son finally went to sleep. Thank God, he went to sleep early tonight. So I'm happy to be here. I'm glad he allowed me to do this show.
Yes, as are we. Thank you, young one.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
All right, so tell us a little bit about yourself. How your co-parenting journey got started, where you are in the world, all the things.
Yeah, all that good stuff. Yeah. So first of all, my name is Osa, and I'm a father of three. My co-parenting journey started a long time ago, like 15 years ago. My oldest son is almost 16, and I have three children, and I got multiple parenting situations. I would say my oldest son, we are doing the co-parenting thing. I think like fully, like the way it's kind of defined on Google. My middle child, that's an open case, so I don't got a whole lot to say about that. And
Okay.
then, yeah, y'all know how it be. And then my youngest child, I think we're doing like a parallel parenting thing, and it's working. It's cool. It's cool. And let me see what else I got going. I mean, so I've had a really positive experience as a parent, as a father, overall, and that's why I've actually been inspired to like start my own podcast, talking about fatherhood, the Reaching Father podcast. So I just kind of want to just go in and share my experience, but also just how it's grown me. I feel like my children have like grown me up just as much as I've raised them thus far. I feel like they've helped raise me. So excited to share, and I'm excited to share with people who like got other information and things like that. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thanks for being here. So you're on the East Coast. Represent your first interview like outside of the state of Washington.
Hey, well, but look though, I'm in Washington D.C., so
Our cousin, the maybe cooler cousin,
Maybe the cooler cousin.
maybe cooler cousin. That's what's up.
Yeah.
All right, so tell me, you said there's like a mix. There's like different co-parenting experiences you've had for each kid. Like, talk about your eldest and how that got kicked off, and how's that co-parenting been?
how it got kicked off. That's funny. We know how that started, so we'll just fast forward. We'll just fast forward to the important part, which is yeah. So we just jumped in. Actually, she's my oldest child's mother. She's the goat. She is the goat co-parent, in my opinion. I think that she is awesome and incredible, and I think that she really supported me. I mean, that was my first, that was my first child, her first child, and we were relatively young. I think we were 20, going on 21, both of us, and so we just got thrown in there, and that experience was it was tough. It was challenging because I came from, what they call a nuclear family, and mom and dad. So I'm like, dang, I felt terrible. I'm like, man, I'm ruining lives out here and unnuclearizing families because we weren't going to be together. So that was really tough to deal with. And then just having a child, and we weren't together. We lived in completely, well, not completely, but we lived in different states at the time, but it's not that serious. Like Maryland and DC. So I was in Maryland and she was in DC at the time. So it's not that different, but it feels like it.
Right.
And it feels like it. So there was challenges with that. I think that she was really, really, really supportive in ways that I can really appreciate now. Like at the time, I appreciated it, but now looking back and looking around, I really, really appreciate how much she valued she valued her son having a father more than anything else. And I think that manifested or reflected itself in some of the littlest things. I remember, I was a dusty college student, right? So I'm like 20, 21, and I'm struggling. I was dusty. I ain't gonna fake like I was, it's awesome. I still ain't all that. Yeah, I was super dusty. And but she was okay, you know what I mean? And I think she was like grateful, like she was thankful. I would buy diapers and she would just be like, thank you. But like it was a genuine thank you from the bottom of my heart. And it really inspired me to want to do more. Like even okay, if I scraped up a couple extra dollars, like instead of putting it towards myself, I would try to put it towards my son. Because the last thing that I gave or whatever I was able to contribute she was so thankful for it that it just helped me, to do better. And so as my life improved, like, we just worked together more and more, and she was very supportive along the way. And I think that inspired me more. And the reason why I say that is because sometimes I think back and I'm like, dang, what if I would have got diapers and she would have said, that ain't enough, or minimize that contribution? I don't even think I would be in my child's life as much as I am, or much as I have been over the years, because that's discouraging. And I would have been so discouraged. And I feel bad for some brothers sometimes, because if they're in that situation, I mean, it could be really, really discouraging, because you already probably feel a certain kind of way if there are limitations to what you're able to contribute financially. But for her, she didn't really make it a big deal. She valued me just spending time with him.
Right.
That's really all that she wanted. That's all that she ever really wanted. And so she just was like, okay, here, we never had to, we didn't have a lot of issues around when he's seeing him and when I'm getting to see him. And if I wasn't going to be able, like, we didn't really have a whole lot of those issues. If I wanted to see him, she was like, yep. I think the only issue was, maybe at worst, the issue was like me not seeing him enough, if anything. However, and then my second child came 14 months after that, and we know how that happened. But I was married to her. I was married to my daughter's mom, my second child's mom, and so the child came along after that. Is I don't even want to get into how it really all happened, but that's a whole nother podcast. So they came right back to back. So that just threw me into, oh my goodness, I barely got through the first frenzy. So it was a lot going on, and so I was able to kind of have both experiences, like the one that's like super, super positive, and then the one that's like, I don't know. So I think it helped me see, and then I have a third one now. A third child now, and so that's another situation. But all of those situations helped me to see myself in a different light. And I'm kind of fortunate for that, because a lot of times it's like, you got 3 children with 3 different, it's like cringy. It's like, it's cringy. So I get it, but for me, it's actually one of the greatest things, because I get to see myself in 3 different lights. Like if it was only one light, like I know some dudes with one child and they have way more drama than I've ever seen between all 3 of mine put together. So I'm like, you know what I'm saying? So I'm like, 3 it's tough, but I mean, what if I only had 1 and it was like really, really difficult? And that was the picture that I got to paint of myself as a father. Like, I'd probably be devastated and I wouldn't think that I'm a good father. But because I got 3 different opportunities to prove myself and show myself and see my consistency, then it makes me more certain of who I am. Because if it was all up to 1, you know what I mean? And depending how that 1 comes out, I mean, it could be good. Like if it was all up to my first one, cool. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? But if it was all on my second one, yikes, but having 3 kind of really helped me see myself as a man, how I am overall, and see myself where I can improve and things like that. So it's kind of weird, but I mean, I appreciate it. It doesn't cringe me out anymore.
Yeah, I definitely want to dive into that at some point. But one of the things that you said that just is making me think is, you're saying how like your co-parenting relationships and like those dynamics kind of impact how you see yourself. And I think that's something that people don't really spend time really realizing, because, I've had people like make a critique on my parenting, and it's never just like a critique on my parenting, it's a critique on me and like how I see myself, you know what I'm saying? So like kind of seeing that line between like how you co-parent, how you raise your child is so intrinsic to us. It's like when you put some art out there and someone critiques it, and then you're like, it hurts. Maybe it shouldn't hurt, but it does. And so, because it's coming for you. And so that's really interesting perspective. I'm glad you shared that.
Right. What I see and what I feel is dope right now is how you light up talking about your first child and your first the first mother. And I want people to understand how critical that is from the male's perspective of having that emotional and mental support. Not even a support, but just no extra stress that's not necessary. Because you said that motivated you to be better, right? And you say to the contrary, if that wasn't the case, you say you probably wouldn't be around as much. And I think that conversation doesn't happen enough about how important it is. You know, if I'm a young dude, you know, early 20s, and I don't have it together, if I'm trying, this at least give me that grace to know that I'm trying. Just like you said, she was, you know what I'm saying? So I think that's really that's dope to point that out though, how that makes sure that lights you up though. So kudos to
Yeah, no, it does. I get more and more grateful as I be seeing these fathers, man. I'll be like, dang, that's what you got to go through. I'll be like, man, I had it sweet. I don't even complain for. I've never really complained. Like I be seeing brothers, I'm like, nah, I'm good. I ain't got no complaints.
No, always advise young dudes is like if you really want to see how it could really go to a family court and just sit there and see how the trials go and get a perspective of like what could happen to you if you choose like the wrong situation. Just go to family court. You'll open your eyes up for real.
I agree 1,000%. I want to dive into that a little bit because that's one of the things when you and I talked first, Osa, I remember thinking like hearing your perspective was so important, so interesting. And on the other side, as a mother, I was like, I'm trying to juggle some things. So like one of the things that you said, which I think is really critical, or you didn't say, but my take on it was like mothers, and you know, it's a very heterosexual perspective, but like mothers should meet fathers where they're at. Like you said, she had grace and like appreciation for what you could do, right? It may not have been all the things that were needed for the kid at the time, but but she did meet you where you at. Like she did appreciate what you were able to accomplish, and that I never thought about how that could positively continue to impact someone. But then on the other side, I'm like, that's so beautiful of her. That's so beautiful. But I'm also not going to shame the moms who are like, dang, we both put 50-50 into this, and moms are expected to like, if you can only provide like 10% at the time, that's great, beautiful, right? I want to be that mom that you're talking about who's like really appreciative, but at the same time, like, but the other 90 is all on me. So like, how do we navigate that? Like, I think it's okay for a mom to not be thrilled about doing the whole 90. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know what your take is on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, so I think that it also boils down to kind of like values. Like, is there a monetary value you can put on your child having the father in their life? You like 90% of what? Like, she's 100% of the mother. I'm 100% of the father. No, you can't divvy that up. And so I think that she put that as a higher value. And then also too, like, I think that as a man, typically we don't get the same support that women get. Like, it's literally all on me. When I was 20 with a child, like, it was all on me. Nobody threw me a baby shower. Nobody called me up and said, let me get the kids. Nobody said, yo, young Black man who's still trying to finish college and like get through life, let me send you some money because I know you need Pampers. Nobody does that when you're a man. There's no benefits. There was no WIC that I could get. There's no tenant. I don't know what y'all call it on the West Coast, but
it's still WIC.
Yeah, okay. It's a federal program, right? Well, right. I ain't get I got none of that stuff. So I mean, to hold me to like, what do you value? Like my presence, you can't do. That's what the value is. It's like, if the resources thing can always kind of be managed, like the physical kind of resources things, there's always ways to kind of manage and even support each other in doing that. I don't know if you've seen this video online. I don't know how far it got out, but it was this woman. She said, yeah, she took her child's father off of child support so that he could like help him get his CDL and his license and something like that. I don't know if y'all saw that video.
I saw that. But she just sister in the glasses. She was wearing glasses.
I think so. Yeah. And I like, that's what I'm saying. Like, she was draining him. I mean, not she, but the system or whatever was draining him for child support, which then affected his ability to be around. But what she realized is like the fatherhood is more important than the money. And you could figure out ways to get money. Like, she really went overboard and was really helpful and protective, right? She decided to take him off child support and So like, I think like managing resources, I mean, we limit like men and a lot of times to like money, which is, we should be able to contribute, way more than 10%. but at the same time too, that shouldn't be the only thing. And so it's a fine line, you know, it's a balance. I don't know the right way to do it. However, I think the value of the human, the value of the father, and the value of the mother should be held in higher regard than like the value of what they can contribute physically, in my opinion.
That's real. I think that's really key. That's really key. And it's like you said, finding that balance. 'Cause at the end of the day, you know, the kids gotta eat, right? The kids got like there are some monetary, like there are some things we can't unfortunately get rid of, but like you said, still, but like valuing the other parts, like things that can't be replaced, which is you as a father, right? You're the only one who can be a father to your child. So I hear you. That's really critical. And I do, and I have heard I was on Clubhouse leading a conversation about co-parenting, and one of the moms was like, hey, you know, the father isn't engaged as like 50-50. I'm the primary parent. Sure, it'd be nice if it was like both, but at the end of the day, like the moment I like met him where he was at and just like stopped holding certain expectations of him out there, like it just made the whole dynamic better. It made her have peace of mind. And like, yeah, sure, like I don't know, sure, it would be great if it was the other thing, but since it's not, like, why not just be grateful for what they are able to do, and you know the role that they are able to play, and just relinquish yourself from the potential disappointment and the frustration. You relinquish them, you relinquish the kid from feeling the angst between the two of you around that, and then you know over time maybe things might change, or you know you find yourself a baby daddy, or you know stepdaddy. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know.
Find yourself another baby daddy.
Just kidding. But no, I just kidding.
Keep rolling that dice. It's like, all right.
It's a numbers game. It's a numbers game, ladies. So I'm just kidding.
What I honestly want us to start having, is definitely, especially in the Black community, is realistic expectations. Because the thing from a Black father's perspective that I notice a lot of Black women don't understand, like he alluded to this earlier, we do not have access to the same resources as you guys do as mothers. You know, like we do not, but you know, when you're in a world or you're in a bubble, you think everybody has access to what you have. Like you said, I mean, look on Facebook, Instagram, every time, which is great that the community rallies together with mothers. Like a mother announces, hey, I need Pampers. People like, go fund me, blah, 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 blah. You know, I need food, you know. But for Black fathers, it's not the same. We're almost like, well, you got to figure that out. Like, you got to figure that out. And also, I want to ask you this, right? Because obviously, as humans, we compare. So, with the first mother, I'm sorry, disrespectful. I don't want to be disrespectful, but
First mother is fine.
Okay, first mother. Okay, the first mother, you know, you dealt with that, and that was like a good situation. And then when the second mother came around, what lesson did that teach you regarding how you could become a better father overall when you was able to, by comparing, even if you did,
Yeah, I didn't, like, they were happening almost simultaneously, right? My first and second, they're only 14 months apart, so it was almost simultaneous. And then the second one, again, like I said, it's an open case, so I try to I gotta, you know what I mean?
My bad.
Yeah, no, it's all good, but I think actually, you know, I like that you pointed that out. Actually, because my first one was like really, really good, I actually feel like my second one taught me a whole lot more about myself. It actually, that one, I can't wait till I could talk about that one. Really, I can't wait, because really it grew me the most, actually, because when you're comfortable, you don't really grow as much as when you're uncomfortable.
Right.
So I was really uncomfortable, and my second child is a girl, so there's all that stuff. The daughter stuff, all that stuff was like, you know, and that one is the most like painful, right? Because I feel like I love all my children the same, right? But you know, I don't know if you got a daughter, Jeff, but
he does.
Oh yeah, so you know, that daughter is special. That daughter is different.
Ball game.
Yeah. yeah. That and I don't want to say that like I love her anymore, but like definitely favoritism, definitely. Oh yeah, I ain't gonna lie.
You're open about that.
Yeah. No, she's definitely, she's the one. She's reliable. She's dependable. She's the homie. She's the road. You know what I mean? The roadie. And so it because I couldn't have the relationship that I wanted, it pulled at me more, and I like felt it more, and I still feel. I mean, it's tough. Like, it's rough right now. I mean, but I had I'm fortunate. I think like what you were saying, Jeff, like when I've seen how bad it could been. Like it just like my daughter's like 14 now. It just started getting like kind of rough. But I know a lot of dudes, like my friends, like my close to me, like I went to some of their cases and oh my God, I ain't never felt that sad in my life. Like I've seen good dudes. I'm talking about good dudes, not these other dudes who get to just do whatever they want as fathers. Like good men who are active in the community, who are employed, who are unstable, who are positive people, just taken advantage of and just be completely separated from their children. So I was like, that never really happened to me. So I was grateful, even though it wasn't ideal, even though that situation wasn't ideal, but it just taught me to be grateful because it could be a lot worse. And it taught me to like kind of maneuver things differently, you know. And it was unfortunate, like with my first child, because me and his mom were so cool, he didn't have to experience like he got to just be a child. He's still kind of very childlike. Like he got to just be a child his whole life. And he's like super green because he don't know what adult things me and his mom, it didn't affect him. Like he doesn't know none of that stuff. All he knows is like, I'm going to daddy's house this day and I'm going to mommy's house that day. To whereas like I would say, with my daughter, she was she had to like, she was just stuck in the middle. I felt bad for her. It's like none of it was her fault, but she's the one that suffers. Anyone trying to make me suffer it don't hurt me. Like nothing could hurt like more than this pitiful situation. But the child always suffers, no matter what you think about me and how terrible I am. You may think as a co-parent, whatever that like that's affecting the child. And I really saw like it gave up. For that reason, like I never had no desire to be at odds with my children's mother because it was like, nah, the children are going to suffer from that. So I would say that's probably the biggest lesson is like that the children suffer.
That's it. Let's. I want to just pause for that because that, at the end of the day, you got to ask yourself what's the motivation for the disconnect, what's driving the disconnect between the parents, because like you said, at the end of the day it's impacting the kids most. So is this something we can just patch up, figure it out, move forward, whatever it is? I don't think anything's insurmountable. I'm sure there are things that are very hard and incredibly hard to see as being surmountable, but I think with the right mindset and support we can overcome some stuff.
So
You can.
Well, I notice a lot of times there's not a lot of clarity about, is it over?
What do you mean by that?
So it's usually one person wants to be with the other, and so they act weird, whether it's the mother or the father. They're not clear about whether or not this is over or what their feelings are or if they're going to get back together. One usually wants to get back together. There's just miscommunication. And when those feelings and those things aren't clear, then I feel like it affects everything else, because one person's acting funny and then the other person's like, well, what's going on? And then, then there's retaliation, and then there's da 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 da. It just goes down a slippery slope. It's usually not that easy to fix, because there's like underlying issues, or one person still may be hurt from the breakup,
Right.
something like that. It's those type of things that people carry out for like decades into their children's lives. And that's really the unfortunate part, because nobody gets the clarity that they need or the closure that they need.
And then the kid turns to be a pawn of power, and all of a sudden.
Yeah. So what would you say are some things that people can do? I don't know if you have experience around this, but like, what are some things that you think people can do, or conversations that people should have to get that clarity or to set a good foundation?
No, I don't really know. I don't really know. I'll keep it a buck with you. But what I do think will help bringing clarity is like co-parenting agreements and stuff. I think you was talking about like coaching. You do coaching on stuff like that. Yeah, I mean that is big. That's huge actually, because I just got hip to what even a co-parenting agreement is. I think probably right around the time my third child was born. I was like, oh, people can do this, and like it really spells things out, especially when you get to the part where it's like, I don't know in your agreements if you come up with these agreements, but it's like, oh, how we're gonna have other people around our children. That part, you know, there's a lot of clarity
Right.
come out
Immediately.
with those bullet points. A lot of clarity gonna come out with that one, in my opinion. I don't exactly know, but I think I think that that co-parenting agreement helps a lot because it'll kind of bring out a lot of conversations that you may not have.
Right. So what are some things that you have either in your existing co-parenting agreement or that you hope to have if you make one, if you haven't had one?
Yeah, I tried to do one. But anyway.
Talk to me. What do you mean?
Now it just didn't get the right steam. Like we started it, right? We did like a rough draft,
Okay.
right? And I think that was good. Yeah, we went through a whole one, we went through the rough draft, and then we were kind of finalizing it. And in the finalizing process, it just kind of fell apart. So it didn't really get no legs. It didn't really get no real steam behind it. However, though, it was very good that we had those talks. And I think a lot of the foundations of how we're parenting now is from doing that rough draft with each other. I think it's probably time to revisit. What is he? He's 4. Yeah, it's time to probably revisit.
It can't hurt.
Well, I'm gonna hit you up, Coach Sid.
Please do. So like what's something that, because at the end of the day, right, like you're saying, like it's great to have a document, right, and feel like we're all committed to something, but as long as the conversations are being had, that's a great first start. So like what's something that came from that conversation, that like a specific thing that you guys leverage now?
That's a very good question. I would say maybe the thing around partners, having other people around. I think we've been able to we've kind of had little small talks about that. If we're like either one of us are dealing with somebody and it seems like it's going to be long term, the thing was like, all right, we just got to let each other know. We didn't go that far to be as like, I think some people want to meet that person. I mean, you know, maybe in the next one we might put that in there, but I think that at least we just inform each other that might be the case.
Right.
I think that that's the most important, because a lot of the other stuff, like I'm super easygoing, like holidays, I'm not gonna fight over holidays because I'm not as big on holidays as other people are. So holidays I'm not gonna fight, you know, and we live pretty close together.
Okay.
We haven't crossed that bridge yet, and like what it's gonna be like if we move further away. So I would say like the partners is probably the closest.
Yeah.
Big one. That's a big one.
Got you. So with the youngest child, you said that's a parallel situation. Can you go into that a little bit more?
Yeah, so I think parallel parenting is I think, and y'all might know better than me, but it's kind of, you're just parenting alongside each other as opposed to with each other. And so she kind of runs things at her house the way she does, and I run things at my house the way that I do, and there isn't much overlap yet. And so, you know, there's a lot less communicating, there's a lot less collaborating and planning because we're not doing a whole lot of stuff together. So she's kind of doing her thing and I'm just doing mine. And so that's why I call it like parallel.
Right. That's how I would describe it.
All right.
Yeah, and so is that because did you guys like say, hey, let's parallel parent, or is it just naturally shaking out the way because you've tried to do the co thing and it's just more para?
Yeah, parallel is better for both of us. Yeah, because we still haven't really worked out a great system, and you know, some of it could be on me. Some of it is probably on me.
You willing to dive into that? What's up? What's going on?
Yeah, because we got different energies. She got first child energy. You know, the first child, you know what I mean? You want to do all this and you want to do the most. And that third child, you've learned a lot and you like, most of this isn't necessary. You know? So,
like 90% of it.
Yeah, like not effort, like yeah. So you know, we don't really, we just don't see eye to eye sometimes, and because she got first child energy, and we've even talked about it. I've even told her, I said, look, I love what you're doing as a mother. I think that you're great, but you know, I'm gonna just keep it real. I know you got first child. This is your first child. You got first child energy. just don't. Like, this is not my first rodeo. So
I'm a veteran in this game, baby. So like, I've been doing it.
I'm a vet, you know what I'm saying? My son, my oldest son in high school, man, he about to graduate in a couple years. So it's like all this extra stuff, because especially when they're younger, extra stuff like so like all these his first birthday party, second birthday party, she want to do all this. I'm like, that's cool, but ask my kids if they remember. Ask my oldest if they remember their first birthday, or their second, or even their third or fourth. I mean, all right, if you want to do that, go ahead, you do it. But I'm not, I'm not pressed to do it. So, it's that kind of thing. It's just like the energy you got.
Okay. I feel like that's a great perspective too.
I like that phrase, first child energy.
First child energy. That's a different.
Because I mean, that first child, you like, oh man, I gotta do this perfect, and everything gotta be right, and I know this is everything that you want to put into it. So that's why I call it that first child energy.
That baby.
Sure, you got 100 items on it and stuff.
Right.
You only use 10 of the 100 items. It's just you learn a lot after the first one.
So
I want to ask you your upbringing. Like, are you from Washington D.C. or like what's your background?
Like, how did you grow up?
Yeah. Like, I grew up in Silver Spring, Maryland, which is right outside Washington D.C. And I'm first generation Nigerian American. So my parents are from Nigeria. They pimped the system they pimped the system to get us over here like some bosses. I ain't put this together till I was older, but I was my parents were actually living in Nigeria when I was conceived, and then my mom conveniently scheduled a trip to visit her sister in Atlanta. So I was born in Atlanta. and then then they took us back to took me back to Nigeria, and then my sister was born a year and a half later. My middle sister was born a year and a half later, and my mom conveniently scheduled a trip to visit her sister in Atlanta. So she was born in Atlanta too, and then came back to Nigeria. And then when I was 5, we all moved back to America, and I pretty much grew up in Silver Spring, and then I went to Morgan State University in Baltimore, and eventually I ended up back in DC. So yeah, I had the 2-parent household, which I'm very fortunate to have. Man, I'm very appreciative of my father. Like, as I get older and older, it's like, dang, like I ain't, because I had a tendency to like not appreciate my father. So when I was younger, I had less of an appreciation for my father. One, because a lot of my friends didn't have their fathers around, and then 2, just society just wasn't really rocking with fathers in a positive light. And then 3, actually, he just got on my nerves, man. He was all trying to make me be better and like have high expectations and standards for myself. Yeah, man, that shit was annoying. Anyway, I messed up. Dang, I did good this whole time. Number 2, I think was really significant. I think the general society around just didn't have a high light for fathers, a high appreciation for fathers. Because I mean, other than maybe Bill Cosby, Carl Winslow, it just wasn't. There wasn't Uncle Phil, I guess. Actually, they did good with the black father.
Yeah.
The other ones were like dope heads, like Homer Simpson. I watch Homer Simpson a lot, and he was just a dope head. Al Bundy from Married with Children. These were like dopey. There's a lot of the fathers were just kind of dumb and like stupid, and so
you think,
Family Guy, American Dad.
Yeah, all dopey, goofy, but all the
just
black,
all about the ego and nothing else.
Right, and also like with the black fathers in the 1990s sitcoms, they all were smart, competent, had great jobs, and they're all empathy, family oriented. But then when you get to the 2000s, you stop seeing that. Mm-hmm. So even with that show, Smart Guy. Mm-hmm. The father was the owner of a roofing company, and he was a single father raising 3 kids on his own. You never see that on television.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Okay, wait. Okay, so you're saying
there's a reason why you don't see fathers in those roles of being provider and nurturer at the same time. They was always portrayed as dopey because of this, like the overall disposition they I believe media wants fathers to have from a societal standpoint.
Which is what? What do you think?
That fathers are not necessary.
What?
Think about it. Like, look at all the television shows with families. Look, the father is always the one that causes all the problems.
Okay.
Usually, that's my perspective. So,
I mean, that's what I saw. So imagine, right? And so then you supposed to go home and respect what your father say. It's tough. It was tough. It wasn't actually until I got well into my role as a father and I realized all this, even the stuff I didn't have to do, but all of the things that I was willing to do for my child, it humbled me to what my father did, for me as a child. It really humbled me. And I wasn't a terrible child, but I was a jerk a lot of times. And you know what I mean? And I remember one day it was like Father's Day or something. And like, I was like, yeah, thanks, Dad. You know what I'm saying? I really appreciate you. And he started trying to apologize for this. I was like, nah, Dad, look, I've seen what it's like when the father's not around. You ain't got to apologize for nothing. Like, he raised me well. He was a stand-up dude. He was there for me every day of my life. He's still there for me now. Like, he lives with me now. Like, they could stay. And people be like, how long are they gonna stay? As long as they need to stay with me. They can stay with me, because they did. I think that's actually the last thing I'm gonna say is, like, I think I was talking about this with somebody the other day. I think that your performance review as a parent comes when you get old. You see who's around to take care of you. That's your performance review as a parent. You can think whatever you want about how great you are as a parent, but when you're old and you need somebody to take care of you, that's your performance review right there. So humble yourselves, parents.
Right now.
You might have scared some people just now by saying, like, oh, dang, I'm going to get my life together.
That's the point,
yeah. Like, that's what I was trying to do.
Because I'm thinking about it now. Like, if I didn't like my parents, they wouldn't be living with me. Or if I felt like they were terrible to me and like they couldn't.
Good luck. I might send you some Uber Eats or something, but
right, I'll send you a couple of houses, but like, you can't come stay with me. But nah, they were great parents. I had awesome parents. So I'm very, very fortunate, and I that's why I pale in comparison to them. I don't even try. I'm doing my best.
Yeah, that's cool, man.
Your best.
That's cool, man.
That's the name of the game. That's the name of the game.
Yeah. Okay. No. I just another question I have is always the dynamic between Africans and Black Americans, right? From your point of view, how did you see, growing up in a Nigerian household, and then your counterparts like Black Americans? Is there a vast difference to you, or is there no difference at all as far as like upbringing wise?
Nah. I was stuck in the middle, but all of y'all the same to me. That's y'all. We do the same thing on both sides of the Atlantic. We just with it, like, because I was always in an awkward position to whereas, like, all right, with my African American friends, is always like, it was cool until a certain limit because, well, you African, so you different. So I got kind of pigeonholed. But then when I tried to be in African circles, I wasn't accepted. I talk like this, I sound like this, I rap, I play basketball, and smoke weed. So it's like, well, you American. So everybody had me stuck in the middle. But as far as I'm concerned, y'all all do the same thing to me. Let me in. Right. Now, there wasn't the only difference is that I feel nervous, but on a more serious note, I guess there was a difference in that perhaps there was more kind of appreciation for the opportunities here. Whereas being African American, it feels like a struggle here in America because of all the things that we have to go through with society and kind of racism, and you see how like things are portrayed in the news. However, but one day I thought about it. I was like, I don't know why my parents left Nigeria, but for whatever reason, they left because they thought it would be better to raise their children Black in America. Let that sink in for a second. I don't know exactly why they left. Yeah, but whatever it was they thought that raising me black here was better. And my parents, they weren't green. They didn't live in freaking huts and stuff like that. And they didn't know what they knew what was going on here. My mother actually spent her youth here. My mother, she lived in DC. My grandfather took them everywhere. But so she was here in this country in her youth. She went to Howard University. She graduated from Coolidge High School in Washington, DC. So like they knew what it was here, but they were like, it's better here. So I think that appreciation, I didn't have it growing up, but I think that they did. And so they poured that into me. And that may be the only difference. But other than that, I mean, most things are just the same. We do a lot of the same things.
Right.
I can't tell you the differences.
Right. I hear you. That's
That's an age old like question too, and it's something that I've been exploring too. Is like how do we appreciate the differences and the similarities and kind of debunk some of the misunderstandings amongst each other because it really doesn't serve us. It serves the powers that be to keep us separated and so on. So yeah, I
agree.
But there's just a lot of I know this is we way off topic, but there's just a lot of like the misconceptions just come from like TV and media and whatnot, and then also it just comes from people not understanding other people's perspective. Like I hear African Americans say, I didn't understand why they said that Africans don't like them and stuff like that. I didn't really, I guess there was some of that, but then I thought about it. And let's say you came to this country from like some country in Africa, I don't know, Ghana or I don't know, Gabon or something. And then like you're a cab driver or like you're a security guard in a mall. Like, how do you think African Americans, young African Americans treat that person?
Right.
And then how would that color their perspective on Americans once they get here, African Americans when they get here? So I don't know about where y'all live, but a cab driver in DC had it pretty rough back in the day. You know, so that was their first experience. Or a security guard in a mall with some young teens running around. I mean, I don't know what it's like over there, but over here, nah, we don't treat them nice. So
I would say, I mean, we are getting on topic. We can pivot soon, but I would say it comes down to media. I would blame it on media first before anything else, because this whole, where do you get the idea to treat someone different than, well, first of all, the fact that they are different for a little, you see a little different, oh, there's an accent, a little bit of different something, facial feature, and then boom, it's different. Let's jump on that. But I do think that, you know, before people can come to this country, the U.S., you know, they're being fed that, you know, African Americans are lazy. We don't appreciate all the opportunities we have here, you know, and then we have folks coming from over there and there's assumptions based off of television that people don't have it all that good. And like, you know, people might still be living in huts, which I've been knowing is a false, not all the way false, but like that is not everyone's reality. I've known that for a long time. And so like, I think at the end of the day, like, it's just like, it's something I think can be addressed, and I actually am actively going to be trying to address that at my job, throwing an event that's explicitly talking about these topics and how we can move forward.
So
no, it's necessary because we be doing the same stuff, man.
yeah,
I live in Southeast DC, and you know the hood, like everybody just be outside, right? And then that's what it's like when you're in the hood, like everybody's outside. It's a hot day. I mean, you know, and then I went to Nigeria when in like 2017, and I loved it. I was like, yo, this is like the hood. Everybody's outside. Like, yo, this is what we do. I get it now.
right, for sure.
You know, my son grew up in a home, you know, his father is first generation Senegalese, and then, you know, I'm African American and so on. So, we, you know, I'm curious to see how Dior is going to grow up understanding all the different identities and so on, and how that all comes together to make him. But yeah, it's been interesting.
Oh, you got you a Senegalese brother. Hey.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Well, I mean,
you know, yeah. But yeah, I agree. So, okay, getting back to like the world of you and co-parenting, like what is some advice you have? Oh, no, I don't even talk about it. When you mentioned like at some point you had this like feeling when you talked about having 3 kids, 3 different moms, like what did it take for you? Like, why did you have that feeling, and what did it take for you to get to this place where you're like, hey, actually, there's a lot of beauty here?
Yeah, because I mean, almost everybody's first reaction to I got 3 kids with 3 different women is that I'm trash, or they assume that I don't take care of my children. That's the automatic assumption that I got. So it's like that's why it's cringy, because I know that's what's people's first reaction, right? And not to, I'm not knocking anybody. I just know that that's what most people's first reaction is, and the assumption is that I don't take care of my kids. So to get through that, I just started to have pride in myself. I was like, yeah, like, I got 3 kids with 3 different women, but I see them, and all my children know each other, and they're around me, and they grow up. To whereas some people got one child and they'll never see them. So what's more cringy? It's to me, or they got one, or like they may be like successfully married or something, like, but they beat on their wife and abuse their child. Like, is that really? I thought about it. I was like, well, I don't. I mean, that's not. I'd rather have the 3 and it's cool, and the moms, they know each other, and and the kids, more importantly, the children know each other, and they all know me. I mean, that's just stand on that instead of whatever people might think. Was there another part to that question?
Well, like just picking on that. Like, I love that you said you decided, it was a choice. You're like, one day I decided to see the beauty in it and like appreciate my circumstance, and that's really key. Not everyone has the ability to think like, oh, I could choose to change my perspective on my situation. Which then, what's the positive impact? Like, was there anything that changed in your behavior or thinking once you decided to see it as a good thing?
For the most part, I've always seen it as a good thing. I think the most important thing is that I've always led with that. I've always lead with I'm a father. I don't even try to pretend. I lead with that. Dating apps, father, if I ever do them, which I don't. But I mean, that's like, I've tried like 1 or 2, and like I'm too awkward. But I'm a lead with that. That's gonna be in the very first part of the conversation, as opposed to if it was something that I was ashamed of. Again, if I was made to feel like I wasn't doing enough or I wasn't sufficient enough, then there'd probably be something that I try to hide more, or blah 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 blah. But because I've always been not only supported, but then also stepped into the role, then it's like, well, yeah, this is my role, so this is what I'm leading with. Like, we ain't even going on a date until you know this about me, because that's what you need to know. And then you can decide up front if you like me or not based on my situation. Yep, I got it. For the most part, it was like 2 kids with 2 different women. All right, it's cringy. If you don't rock with that, then that's cool. At least you know up front.
Right.
So that's how it kind of like I just took it. I just took control of it instead of like letting it. And you just, with fathers, like, rock it with pride. Like, if you're a father, whatever your situation is, you just, if you're doing what you're supposed to do and you're taking care of your children, that's more important than what anybody else thinks, in my opinion. So take control the best that you can. I know that's hard to say for a lot of us fathers. It's hard, easier said than done, but take whatever control that you can, and then rock that fatherhood badge with pride. And then it has positive effects, because then people will treat you different. People don't treat me like I'm cringy.
Right.
It just sounds cringy up front. I mean, but anybody who knows me, they're like, oh yeah, especially people who know me for a while, they're like, oh yeah, nah, he be with his kids. Like, everybody like, nope, he ain't. You ain't gonna see him this weekend. He's not, but he be with his kids. So I'd rather have that be known about me than, I'm cringy.
So what's the dynamic? You mentioned that your kids know each other and your children's mothers know each other. Like, what's that been like? What's that dynamic?
Oh, it's okay. It's actually been pretty good. I mean, the kids spend time together, not so much the moms, but they just know each other, and there's no beef. Like I said, I've never really had no baby mama drama like that. I'm so fortunate. Like, I don't know how it happened, but it just hasn't happened, and I don't really have much experience with that. But the most important thing was like the children being around each other, and that's always been a thing. And the mothers, no matter what I feel about them, at the end of the day, they've always supported that. All 3 of them, they've always been supportive of me having my children, and making sure that they grow up together and be around each other, and they know each other well. So again, that's why the moms are just really, really critical and really, really important. I mean, it's a challenge that we all have to face, but just the moms are just so critical in all that they do. And I think moms have a lot more transformative power than they believe that they do. And
sometimes I feel like they kind of give it away because for various reasons. A lot of times it's good reasons, but sometimes I feel like a lot of moms have more power than they realize, and fathers respect that. Like for real, a lot of fathers respect that. And so like if I feel like if some, like I'm saying this like thinking about my friends, like some of my friends who are mothers, and like I just say that thinking that like if they took their power and used it in a more positive light, they can get so much more out of their situation. Now some can. I'm sorry for y'all. Sorry. I'm so sorry. It just ain't nothing that y'all can do. But yeah. No, but some of them also too, can find that, like, again, like with my oldest child's mom, she took that power and she used it, in a very, very, very productive way. And my son has reaped the benefits from that 100 times over. So shout out to all the moms out there doing dope things and being dope.
2 times for that. and the papas.
And the papas what?
Obviously the fathers. Yeah. Fathers be out here doing the thing in silence too. We're starting to talk about it a little bit more, but dads just be holding it down quietly, like just rocks. Just some dads out here doing the most. You wouldn't really know because we don't brag about it on Mother's Day, but that's a whole nother. We ain't even gonna talk about that right now.
And highlighting that too, because fathers always had to like just do the work, but you're starting to see that movement of fathers speaking up more regarding their contributions to everything, including yourself, because you say you got a podcast, speaking about your experiences as a father and dads and all that stuff. So is pretty much let me ask you, so what made you want to create the podcast in the first place? Your podcast.
Right. Yeah, because mine I feel like it's called Reaching Father, right? But I feel like my journey is like it's never ending. Like you're always reaching, like you don't get there, like you're always growing, just like the child is growing. Every day of their life is like a new day, and they got to figure out what to do in this new day. As a father, it's like every day of my child's life is like a new day, new circumstances. So it's like you're always reaching something. And I also wanted to talk about fatherhood. I wanted to just intentionally be not so fluffy about it, because I do feel like as men in general, we just got a lot. We can do so much better. I definitely feel like, because they always say like what's lacking in the community. Like I live in a community that is not in the best shape in Southeast DC. And people always say, well, we need more fathers. But when I look around, there's fathers everywhere. I don't think that's the problem. I don't think we need more fathers. We need better men. And so my intention is to like speak to the things that I think that will help improve our conditions as men, so that we can be better fathers, right? So I think that was the intention of kind of starting up the podcast and reaching, like reaching farther, but also reaching father. And I think that we can attain that, because the standards for us as fathers, it's just so low. It hurts sometimes. It's so low. I remember when my oldest two, I had them, whatever, I had them. And, but like people would treat me like it was so amazing. And it's cute after a while, it's cute for a while. Cause the sisters, they be like, oh, you spending time with your kids. Oh,
we talked about that.
Yeah. All the glory.
Yeah.
All right, so because y'all be getting all the glory. We were talking about this. Y'all be getting all the glory because y'all just doing what you're supposed to be doing, raising your kids. Whereas me, it's just like, oh, do you even have time to date? Or it's just like you're just doing your job. Okay, cool. But anyway, that's what's up. Happy for you. So you had them, and you got the kudos.
No, I feel like I'm after a while, it really stopped being cute. I was just like, wow. I was like, I'm supposed to be like, they're much like. It's just so weird.
Right.
But the bar is so low because the bar is set at nothing. Like that's the bar. Like you don't take black men, we don't take care of our kids. N words ain't S words, all of that stuff. Like that's the bar. So anything above that bar is like, oh my God, you're a great father. And I would even like in my head, I'm taking away credit for myself. I'm like, yo, okay, we at the park. You don't know if I do this once a week or once a year. Why are you how do you know I'm a good father? And not to poop on myself, I would appreciate the compliment, but I'm just like, dang, that's all it takes.
Right.
So
showing up. Just showing
up. Like, dang, man. So I really believe like, yeah, we gotta raise the bar somehow. So I talk about that a lot in a way. It's not comfortable, man. My part is not for the faint of heart, because this fatherhood ain't make me soft. I had to swallow some tough pills as a young father, 20 years old. I had to swallow some tough pills. So I'm giving them back on my podcast. Come through Reaching Father podcast.
That's where you'll hear more. So Reaching Father podcast, we can find you. Where can we find you?
Yeah. reachingfatherpodcast.com, and then IG, YouTube, anywhere, Spotify, wherever the podcast is podcasting, Reaching Father podcast.
Okay, that's beautiful.
That's dope.
Do you have any other questions?
Yeah, actually I do. Advice, right? What's the best piece of advice you ever received regarding fatherhood? And what's the best advice you can give somebody, to like the young dude out there watching that's about to have his first child? So what's the best advice you ever received, and what's the best way you can give a young father?
I ain't getting no advice about fatherhood, man. My dad ain't had nothing for me, man. I was in this messy ass situation. He had nothing for me. But I took a lot from him. It wasn't like fatherhood is like, I feel like I learned from my father, not in what he ever said, but like what he did. So I think the biggest lesson was just like not giving up and not being afraid to hold a higher standard for my children. My father wasn't afraid to do that. And I think that that's the biggest lesson. And I take that into particularly my oldest son, because again, around him, the bar is just so low. And I feel like it's on me to kind of set the bar a little bit higher for him so that he can achieve higher heights. So I think the best advice that I've received was just kind of like set the bar high. Now, I don't know if y'all know Nigerians, they do it a little too high, but it's fine.
It's pretty high.
Yeah, it's pretty high, but it's fine. I'd rather have it too high and fall short than like too low and then hit it. So I think that that's the best piece of advice that I've received. I mean, it wasn't advice, but it's just something I noticed. What I would give to young fathers in that prenatal phase, I would say, and I told this to one of my cousins, I said, you know what, I like tried your best to like relax in that prenatal phase. It's going to be crazy, and don't get swept up in the storm of the prenatal phase, because once the child gets here, a lot of that just kind of goes away. And you'll forget why you was beefing the whole time anyway. So just do your best as a father to like be resolute in the prenatal phase, because I know how hard it is. Like it sucks, because you realize for the first time in your life, you probably felt like you don't matter, and don't let that count you out, and just be resolute.
Yeah, awesome.
Dope. Awesome. Straight gems you just dropped.
Yeah,
appreciate it, bro.
I appreciate y'all like having me here to like drop some gems, man. I hope your audience takes some of them gems and runs with them.
Yeah, I think that
it's important the work that y'all doing too. You know what I mean? Like co-parenting exes and baby, like that's, man, if we could figure that out, tell me, man, this whole world to change.
We can solve a lot of problems.
We can solve a lot of issues with what we're both doing, because it needs to happen. Because this is like the critical conversations that need to have, instead of all the frivolous, fluffy stuff. Like this is really what life's all about. It's at the home base, and that's what we're doing. Right. So,
yeah, absolutely. And I think at the end of the day, themes I've gotten from this conversation is really just holding fathers with more grace, and like recognizing that there's needs that fathers have as well. As well as, figuring out that dynamic, and just being intentional, doing the work, looking internally, working out externally, all those things.
Yeah, doing the
work. That's what we got to do. But all the growth, right? All the learnings. That's what we have to do every day.
Every day. Yep.
Thank you so much.
All right, Sid.
I know it's big over there, so appreciate you.
Yeah, no doubt. Nah, I'll be up like this. So y'all good. Y'all good. Yeah,
All right.
All right. Thank you for having me. Take care.
Yes, thanks for being here. Take care.